It may look as if I'm just out for a Sunday walk in the woods, but this is Brands Hatch and we are inside the Grand Prix Loop and we're here for the Masters Historic Festival.
The weekend of May the 28th saw the 16th running of the Masters Historic Festival at Brands Hatch. We drove down on the Sunday and the sun was shining and there was quite a crowd of people in shorts and with their tents and kids, so there was a festival atmosphere. The pre-66 touring cars were up and running when we arrived, and there was a story of the mighty Minis against the American Mustangs. Car clubs were out in force, lovely E-Type Jag and late 60s BMW. And this beautiful XK140, always a favourite of mine. The Ford GT40s, I'm guessing these are replicas, they're always impressive to look at. '80s supercars were a wise investment a few years ago, and these two Lamborghinis were incredibly large cars actually close up. I never realised how big they were. Lovely Alvis, early 60s, a real gentleman's carriage, beautiful upholstery there. This was a strange Alvis I'd never seen before. In actual fact, it was named Alvis Duncan, so I feel I should have one of those in my garage. Its body shape is somewhat reminiscent of a sort of 1930s Bugatti. The trade stalls were there. That's actually a historic racing simulation there, which is very popular. And into the paddock, and here we have a Chevron B8 and a beautiful Aston and Ford GT outside the Masters hospitality area. And this was a gorgeous Fiat Dino. I always feel that they're basically Ferraris essentially. And look at that upholstery, absolutely gorgeous and finished to the highest standard. The American Fords were out in force. Alan Mann Racing with his period van there. The Falcons, the Mustangs, these great big engine beasts are always exciting to watch. These two beautiful icons of British motoring, low drag E-Type and Aston Martin DB4 GT Zagato. I think the last one sold for £7.5 million by Sotheby's. Just an absolutely beautiful thing, and the low drag E-Type, the detailing, the rivets and the fuel filler there just give it that sort of muscular, purposeful look. And I think there's a couple of Crossleys, the Irish racing car manufacturer, and of course the Jägermeister liveried Ford Capri. And who would have thought a Trabant, just to add to the eclectic mix. There was a young timers race at the festival, and I think it was run by a club from the Netherlands, and so it was quite an odd sort of combination of cars. And this beautiful liveried Mini, that's my daughter there, she took a liking to this because it matched her jacket. But this does illustrate is just the level of presentation of a lot of these cars, and that colour scheme is fantastic. Johnny Kent driving that. And yes, a DAF 55, look at that. And I took a closer look at the rear wheels on that, and they were enormous. And a Shelby Daytona Coupe, far more sort of familiar with that in the historic paddocks. And Mini and Morgan. You can see how restricted it is inside that Morgan with the rollover cage. Now this car shook the ground when it started up. Chevrolet Corvette, 7.5 litres of American muscle, fantastic beast. This is the Equipe Classic Racing grid for pre-66 racing cars, and it's their qualifying session. So a mix of MGs, Austin Healey's, Morgans, Austin Healey 100 there just coming down the hill. Always interested in the Austin Healey's, having one in the garage. Alpha GT there and lots of MGBs. And a Volvo P1800, you don't see many of those. I think that's John Pearson running that car. Now these are the big engine sports cars which I really did come to see. Lola T70s and magnificent machines. They really do make the ground shake when they go past. Mclaren M1. And we've got the Chevron B8s, two beautiful Chevron B8s, one nosing the other off. And but he seems to be okay. He's up and running again. The Lola T212s are very quick. This grid really is a sort of fight between agility and just brute force. Here we've got two of my favourite cars, that white 108, that's a Lola T70 with a Chevy 5.7 litre engine, followed by the Chevron B8s with only a 2 litre BMW engine in, nippy but beautifully agile. Doesn't Brands Hatch look lovely there with the undulations? And MSV really do a wonderful job in the presentation of the circuits. And off into the woodland area, the Grand Prix circuit at Brands Hatch really is a magnificent circuit with the undulations. Another gorgeous Lola T70 and the dark green Lola T70 there. Sam Hancock was driving that, and we've seen him pedal a lot of very quick cars, a lot of experience he has under his belt. This was an hour-long race with pit stops, and Chevron B16, also a gorgeous car, and in slow-mo, that is gorgeous in that dark green. That is a car that I would love to have in my stable. Unfortunately, that Lola actually retired just before the end of the race with gearbox problems, which was a great shame. Oh, and there's that Chevrolet Corvette hurtling along. 7.5 litres, easily the largest capacity car on the grid, and that includes the Lola T70s really have usually a 5.7 litre Chevy engine. The winning car, actually, which was driven by Simon Hadfield and Leo Voisides, actually only has a 5 litre engine in it. Talking of engine sizes, this grid is actually split into 4 classes, under 2 litres and over 2 litres, and whether it's an open cockpit car or a prototype or a GT. Again, another gorgeous Lola T70 going under the Brands Hatch Bridge. Out at the back, there's some wonderful corners, and it really is a different circuit to the rather basic Indy circuit, which has its charms. Here we are with the Formula One cars, and I have to hold my hand up. This isn't really an era of racing that has caught my interest, but more and more people are turning up to see these cars from the 80s. The grid only really had 9 cars on. I don't know if there was a big grid on the Saturday, but it was a fantastic race. Basically, Miles Griffiths was out in front by a long way. He's in the yellow car there. Look how far ahead he is of the second and third cars. There they are. You would have thought he had the race sewn up, but Steve Hartley in the McLaren, who started at the back, went through the grid and at the end overtook Miles Griffiths and took the lead, and it was a fantastic chase from the back. So Just shows that maybe those cars aren't the ones that I would be coming to see, but the race itself was thoroughly entertaining. Here we are on one of the last laps, and Hartley right up, and he did eventually take the win. A chance to look in the pits, and that's the beautiful Chevron B8, and that colour scheme is gorgeous. I don't know what you call that, metallic mushroom, but BMW 2-litre engine. Look how low that is. Those were the two cars that came together, so would have been an embarrassing conversation probably in the pits afterwards. And there's the Lola T70 Mark IIIB, the winning car, the Simon Hadfield Lola T70, looking marvellous with the period signage on the side. And the Endurance Masters, these are in my eyes modern cars. They're up to the sort of 90s and early 2000s endurance racers. But it is quite interesting to see them. A Ferrari there being parked, obviously didn't quite make the grid. But yes, quite interesting to see these, what I call modern endurance racers. They look almost like they come from a different planet. They're mixed in with the GT cars as well, so you've got a mix of sort of Ferraris and a Dodge Viper there, I think, but they make a magnificent noise. Steve Tandy won the race in the Peugeot, which is in actual fact a 2011 car, so that's really quite modern, only 11 years old, and it's a 5.5 litre car. So you're really getting the flavour of Le Mans with these cars. Now going from the most modern cars to probably the oldest car, which is this lovely Lotus 11. Being driven by Sandy Watson, it's the Le Mans model because of the headrest, the Ukraine flag there on the side. 1500, just under 1500cc, Coventry Climax engine. One of the Formula One cars. Always impressive to get up close to these things, and there were no restrictions in the pits. You could wander around. There's the iconic liveried Mclaren, and a beautiful Austin Healey 100. What we're seeing here is the grid getting together in the assembly area, lovely E-type, isn't it, for the Equipe Classic Racing grid. David Wenman was driving that Morgan. We knew him because he bought our Connaught A4, so he's driving something a bit different, and it's great to see him out in that Morgan. Lotus Elan 26R. The Lotus Elans just seem to be so quick these days and often are up at the front of any grid. And the heavy metal here with the Ford Mustang. Austin Healey 3000 in the background, and MGB. My daughter said if she was to start racing, what car should she get? And I suggested the MGB. I think they are great. You are eligible for so much, and they're relatively reliable and driver friendly. There goes the Lotus. Beautiful Alpha GT Sprint, I think that one is, and TVR with the V8 and the short wheelbase. Lovely car. Another Austin Healey 100 and another rumbling V8 engine TVR Griffiths. This is interesting. I talked to Sam Ashby, who was driving this Austin Healey Sprite. You can see the duct tape there. That was because in qualifying, he turned that car over and it did not look pleasant for some time, but he was safe, he got out and he was in the race, and the car looked really good, because at one moment we thought that was almost going to be a write-off, but safety equipment and cage kept him safe. It was only his third race and his father had come to see him. How awful must that be to see your son turning over the car, but all was good. Now look at how many cars are on this grid. Spitfire going through there, you don't see that often. And any race organiser must be chuffed to see so many cars filling the Grand Prix circuit. What a wonderful sight. It's almost too congested to actually race, but I think this must be the green flag lap, and because they seem to be quite well behaved. The E-Type right at the back, which is quite surprising. Now we're up and racing, and the MG going through there, and just a beautiful mix. And if anybody thought that grids were getting slim due to the expense of racing, well, this will prove you wrong, because that surely is a maximum turnout, and how good it is to see. Again, this grid is split into classes, 8 different classes actually, ranging from under 1300cc to over 3.5 litres. So there'll be lots of dices sort of all the way down the grid between class leaders. This was a 40-minute race with pit stops, so 2 drivers usually, or you could drive both stints if you wanted to. The TVR Griffith, number 177, which you can just see taking Graham Hill Bend there, that took the victory laurels at the end of the race. And it's not surprising, really. It has the big V8 engine, so it's one of the most powerful cars on the grid.
Of course, we had yesterday, and then he spun out solo. I can't remember what was it.
Then it was all over and time to pack up and get the cars home. This is Simon Hadfield's team getting Chris Baton's brightly coloured Lola T70 into the transporter. Always a bit of fun to watch. And what a wonderful meeting it was. The crowds were certainly there, so it looks like it must have been a success for Masters financially, and we look forward to their next meeting.